Ladies and gentlemen, we're in for a big treat today. How you doing, Austin?
I'm good. I'm good. How about you?
Oh shit, I can't hear you. Hold on.
Oh man,
Let me figure out what's going on. Can you hear me?
loud and clear.
Oh, I can hear you now.
Look at that. You fixed it.
Always do. I don't need these. How you been, old friend?
Good, good, good. Busy. Got a lot of partners now, and getting through the ABP season with everybody on the wholesaler and the supplier side's been busy, and then getting ready to. Feels like we were just on the conference circuit, but it's firing right up, starting with yours in January. So be
Yeah.
out there, and then there's a lot going on in Vegas this year. It looks like so.
Yeah. It
NBWA and more. So, or not NBWA, CBC and everything else. So, a lot of trips out west this year.
yeah, it does seem to go in waves, right? Like one year, like everything's in Chicago and New York, and then the other next year, everything's out west. And yeah, this is going to be a west year. And I'm here for it. It's a little far for us, but far for you too. But you know what?
You're in what, Austin, or where are you
I'm in,
at?
I mean, yeah, I'm in San Antonio. We call it South Austin. We're just kind of a suburb. We're really part of Mexico. Nobody really knows that we're here. I wanted to say that I have Austin Sawyer on here. You're a number two repeat on the podcast. Austin's with CounterMeasures Corp, CMC. And, for people who are new here, let's just say, our audience has grown, Austin, since the last time you're on here. So why don't you tell briefly, like, what your company does?
Cool. Yeah. So we were started about 3.5 years ago. And I was my whole life before that was on the wholesaler side and just saw so many suppliers needing a better route to market, whether it was sales or national accounts or getting into new distributor warehouses, whatever it was. But there was a couple paths to do that. One was raise a ton of money and kind of struggle and hire a team with a lot of risk there. Most of these brands are started for an end game of getting out at some point. Growing to a larger parent company. So they got to deal with the people they brought along the way, one way or the other. Or they kind of had to bootstrap and hope for the best. We saw an opportunity I saw so many brands that had amazing liquid, great marketing schemes, whatever it may be, that just didn't have the route to get out there without doing it without a lot of money. So we basically opened up a firm that operates in four silos, if you will. The first is the shared sales rep model. This has taken four brands, selling it. It's pure retail sales. So I think if you talk to most distributors out there in the country today, they all just went through ABP season. Their number one goal is to sell more of those boxes and barrels that are in their warehouse that they signed up to sell. We do just that. We partner four brands that are sold in similar channels. We want to be aligned with one wholesaler as the goal in every market. We kind of work that major metro in about 45-minute circumference outside of the city. And we sell those brands at retail, track it all through Karma, send it to the wholesaler and supplier, get retail wins, placements, stacks, kegs, you name it. The second thing we do is our national accounts team. And I was actually reviewing our notes from the last time we did this, and we were at one, and I kind of called my shot that we were going to grow, and now we're at 5 people on that team, which has been really cool. I don't know the exact date we did that, but it seems like a minute ago we met, and the whole year was a blur. So we got 5 people on the national account team, all national accounts with different suppliers across the country, some wholesaler background on the national account side. But we're doing just what it takes to grow into national accounts, calling on all your major, national retailers, your local regional partners, going through the submission process, new item forms, change strategy, putting together the data for them and having a good selling story for all the retailers care about, obviously, and having the right brands on the shelf and going through that process. We're also doing a lot of expansion work. This is bringing brands that are in a few markets that want to open up their national distribution. We've been incredibly lucky to work with some great brands like Kyle and the team at Loverboy, the team over at Poppy, 5 Hour Energy, a bunch of great brands in the alc and non-alc side about opening new markets. We handle the process of going to the distributor, making sure we're bringing them viable brands that, I looked at those brands for a long time on the wholesaler side. So I kind of know what's important to the wholesalers. We also talk to these wholesalers all the time in every market around the country to understand what's working in their market. We pay attention to what's on trend and try to find the brands that we think have the best shot in that category, and grow them into new markets. And we also have a retail marketing division, and Maria from our team runs that. That's everything from instant rebate coupons, mail-in rebates, point of sale, solutions to sell and market. So if you look at it, I guess everything except for production and social media, we're kind of in there for brands. So that's the nuts and bolt of it.
Man, but that's a lot.
It's a lot.
She's when we excuse me, I'm getting over a cough due to cold.
Yeah.
Excuse me. I need a cough button here. You know, as you can see, I've built a new office studio. Let me show it to you.
It looks good.
Oh yeah.
That's awesome.
And let me make sure that the smoke machine's on too, because you're a repeat guest, and we got to do smoke for you.
Oh man, look at that. Hey, you're doing it.
That's right. BeerNet Radio, where all your dreams come true. All right. Well, when we talked last year,
now that cough's going to get a little worse.
Good God, I did it too much. All right. Well, you know, a lot's changed really since last year. It was just kind of starting to get tough out there. You had mentioned last year that retailers and wholesalers are getting pickier about who they take on. How is that translated to your business? Like, what are you seeing out there?
Yeah. So, when we meet with the brands that we're going to take, let's just call it expansion, we're bringing new brands to new markets with wholesalers. That vetting process is a lot longer now. If you're an RTD, we don't go with the method, there's too many RTDs, that's a tough market. We want to see what's different about you. How's the liquid? We're trying it. We send it to all of our team members and leadership's addresses. We try it. We talk about it as a group. We really understand the partners that are behind the brands. Because one thing we learned early on is, we are a brand, a company that's been built on reputation and what we deliver for brands. And that's all we have to stand on. So we have to make sure our reputation is strong and our deliverables are great. So, we're making sure that the brands we sign on, they're ones that wholesalers want, and they're ones that we feel like we can do a good job for. So we go through that process really more stringent than ever. We make sure we have something that's kind of playing in every category. Wholesalers, the last time we spoke, and now even more so, change are so critically important. We're seeing some of this where it's, hey, we love the brand, but we're a 60% chain market, so happy to let you submit, happy to go through our vendor numbers, go through the process. And if it goes in, we'll do business together. But we got to have that. We also know the markets that are going to say that. We know the ones that have a good independent opportunity to go out there and put their retail sales team out there, or ours, or whatever it might be, and grow the brands. But we know the ones that, we talk to them, they come to us and say, hey, I want to be in Texas, California, and Florida. I say, you and everyone else, right? This is where they sell a little bit of beverage. That's where everybody wants to execute. We really walk through the nuts and bolts, what it takes to win there, what the major retailers are. We ask if they had any conversations, do they have a national accounts team working on those chains? And the good news is the wholesalers know that we're bringing brands to. We've vetted a lot of these brands. We've went through all that. I can't think of the last time we've had multiple brands on expansion in the same category. But we try to be ahead of it as a company. We started talking to THC brands to take out to new markets, THC beverage brands, probably 6 or 8 months ago. MBWA was covered in THC beverage brands. So the good news is we got to sample them live. We got to meet the owners, and we went through that. And we've got a great one that we're about to start taking to new markets now. We've got a couple that we're working on the shared sales rep side. But on the expansion side, it's interesting to watch, especially on the THC beverages. That's a category the distributors are a hard, I'm in or I'm absolutely out on right now. And there's no gray area. There's a couple people that are maybes. They're going to wait and see what happens. But I feel like there's a couple markets, Minnesota being one of them, where there's just this gold rush effect. But you've also seen that happen in Colorado. You've seen it happen in Massachusetts. And there's been a little bit of rollback, I think, when regulation comes into play. We try to stay ahead of it with our forensic compliance firms and legal firms and try to see what they're hearing in the industry, and try to stay ahead of it. But the bigger thing is when we really get to know these brand owners, we try to, because our job in that expansion role, if they don't do national accounts with us, they don't do shared reps with us, all we're doing is getting that project done, opening their wholesalers, and then it's on their team to have that wholesaler supplier interaction. we want to make sure we're not bringing them a room full of jerks once they're done, right? We want to make sure they're good people. They understand the business, because if every brand we brought out, the wholesaler called and said, what in the hell happened? Like, who are these guys? Like, what's wrong with them? They don't know what we're talking about. They don't know how to do this. They don't know how to do that. We're having to hold their hand. Then they're not going to pick up the phone for us as quick next time we have a good one that's viable. So that side's pretty tough. But we are seeing wholesalers really self-diagnose right now and say, it doesn't take the AB last year out of it. If they're Molson Coors having a great year, if they're an independent, they're all kind of evaluating, what do I have? What's growing? Like, tea's hot right now. Do I have a twisted competitor? Do I have something in the category? Beer in some markets is coming back for craft. The all others, want scale. The craft houses want a brand of scale. So they're all kind of evaluating what they need right now, and they're doing a pretty good job. So on that front, it's a pretty good time to talk to wholesalers. Most of them, this is the craziest time of the year, as you know. It's ABP season, and that executive leadership team is rolling right into budgets for 24. So what they're all seeing right about now is, I either need to, sell an extra 1 million cases of Corona out of my ass, or I've got to figure out a way to deliver this GP number. The Corona seems to work a little bit, but not everybody has the gold network in their book, or whatever the brand may be. So they're really challenging themselves. What do they need? And the good news is, we're a lot of those wholesalers' first conversation about, here's what we're looking for. Do you know these guys? And a lot of times, even if we work on shared sales reps with somebody and we know them, I mean, this is the biggest small industry in the world, as you know. Even if we don't know them, we know we're 1 degree of separation can usually find somebody. So we help out a lot. A little bit of favors exchanging to keep the relationship solid. But yeah, wholesalers are, doing a really good job of keeping their warehouses full of the right items. And I don't see that getting any easier over the next year or two.
Right. When we first talked, and when I kind of looked at your company, I was like, oh, this is a great service for like craft brewers or small up and coming drinks providers, like you said, Poppy and 1 Hour Energy, Lover Boy. But now that I think about it, it's also pretty valuable for wholesalers, for what you just said, because this is funny, because I remember this was probably about, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago. John Now at Silver Eagle, San Antonio, every few years he summons me. And when I say summons, it is like a summons, like, Harry, this is John Now. Meet me at such and such restaurant on the Riverwalk at 6:30 a.m. tomorrow. And I'm like, oh, geez, really? It has to be that early? But, he gets up and jogs like 5 miles, whatever. And the reason for that breakfast was, he was like, is there a service out there that will vet all these suppliers for me so that we don't have to do it ourselves? He goes, is there? And I was like, I really don't think there is, other than like reading Beer Business Daily and kind of doing it yourself. There really isn't. And then here you come. Oh, here comes Austin Sawyer riding in on a white horse, and like you said, I would think trust is a huge thing. You don't want to blow your wad on some crackpots, because we used to say the beer business is 99% asshole free. And we now know that that's just not true. Close. But, it's still mostly asshole free, but we still get a few crackpots that slip in. Interesting.
You name that wholesaler, talking about down Silver Eagle guys, and one of many that, it doesn't matter. And so many of these wholesalers are now part of statewide networks, because the brands they do want with chains have to have an all or nothing approach, right? They can't go to Walmart and say, hey, we're coming to Texas, but we're not covering a third of it because we can't get wholesalers. The chains say, okay, next, I'll go to the other 1,000 brands in submission queue and move on. So what happens is, not only are they very engaging with us about what they're doing, what their needs are, what are you guys working on? They ask us that. We do it. We're able to not only bring them brands they're looking for, but they also now trust in our shared rep model. So they know that, hey, our reps are now more crowded than ever, but I've got to get these boxes and barrels out of the warehouse. So suppliers have a lot more regional managers, a lot more money in national accounts teams, where it may be. But at the end of the day, if we can go into, Benny Keith in Dallas, or Crescent Crown, Arizona, wherever we've got people, and we can say, hey, we're selling 4 of your brands. Well, now we're getting invited to the sales meetings to talk about 4 brands at once. And they're
Right.
putting this on ride with, because now instead of a supplier asking for a ride with a singular brand to take up a whole rep's day, we're selling 4 brands that matter to them. They sign contracts for, they want to grow. And now they're seeing just an exponential amount of growth between these brands and the opportunities in markets. And for the suppliers, when you are spread out as an organization, even if we go a day without sales, which I'll not say is our goal ever, we are talking about your brand all day at retail, or all day with that sales rep. So now there's 8-9 hours of brand education that goes on in the vehicle with the ride along. So there's so much interaction. And, if there was I'm sure there's an AI or Power BI tip or trick somewhere that you can just, like, artificial intelligence will take over at some point, I'm sure. But if you could just, like, pay for bandwidth of the things that go on the sales rep, the ad, if wholesalers at one point would run ads at the bottom of the screen about, this is the brand of the month, this is the craft brewery of the month, push this seltzer, it's a $3 MIR this month, or whatever it may be. I think there's a way that's going to all be incorporated at some point, and wholesalers monetize that or make it part of their agreements and something else they're offering to be more competitive suppliers. But share of mind is so tough to get. And I don't care how big you are. And, what you said a second ago, Harry, when we started this company, we thought that our target demographic was a lot of these smaller guys. There is a world for us, and we're having active conversations with some of the top, not just craft brewers. We've got some of the top brewers in our book now, but top beverage companies. Because now, and we're not talking to this company, so I'm making no claims here, but, say you're Molson Coors with Blue Moon, and you've had a traditional, incredible high tap share forever. But now there's been other wheat beers from local crafts came in. There's a million things, or you have a new line extension. You can have a massive wholesaler incentive. You can do whatever it is, a flash in the pan. But even if you're Molson Coors with a Blue Moon line extension or a Blue Moon non-alc next year, we're a viable option to have a feet on the street team to just go sell that everywhere and place the pods. So when our team is talking to brands, we're going to conferences, we're not scared. Like, put me in a room with the Molson Coors people that are deciding where they're putting their head count, or Diageo or AB or whoever it may be. We'll talk to them, because I will fall on the sword that our model works great for small partners just starting out, but everyone has a goal. That's to get more points of distribution, more handles, more displays, more market visibility and penetration. It doesn't matter what the brand size is anymore. And even a lot of these big companies, they don't have ample amounts of people that are out there just selling every day. They have people that are engaging with their wholesaler, being market managers. But the sales part of it is what we do every day. And I think it's a lost art across the industry, on every side. And that's why I think we're seeing a lot of growth.
You're exactly right that share of mind it's always has been important, and it's more important than ever with so many SKUs trying to get in, and just having that ride with is so valuable. And it is hard to get, like you said, if you're just a small guy with one brand coming in, it's, wholesalers like, and then the pre-salesman's like, oh, geez, I got to ride with this guy. And, I've only made one placement in the last 2 weeks,
Yep.
It's embarrassing. Or
it's a whole game though. And we want to, like, take the gaming out of it. We want to take the routine out of it, where it feels like a chore, and, like, man, this is, on incentive, or this is part of my monthly bonus objective. And this person is going to ride with me and handle the follow-up and handle the signage and build the display. They love it. So it's for execution wise, we've seen a lot of success out of it.
Right. So one of the things that we've noticed over here is that C-stores are becoming more and more important, even to smaller players. Has that worked its way more into your strategy over there?
It has. So, we've, Nashville was the first market where we launched called an independent C-store shared rep. And we'll be adding it to, I think we're looking at Dallas, Chicago, Phoenix next year, and maybe a couple more. But basically, they're for brands that want to live in independent convenience. So think of we've got a Howie Spike coffee brand that is a countertop rack unit in C stores that sells 8.3 ounce cans, and Tip Top Liquors we sell that does the same countertop units, all the way to energy or non-alc brands that want to be, that C-store buyer. You're fighting against Pepsi and Coke and KDP. And I saw your article today, which the wholesaler side of me was just like, man, I don't know. Is there going to be like a Coke boycott? I don't know what's going on. That was crazy to me, but it's the real
Yeah.
world. And by the way, if you can do it, I guess it's within your right to do it. But someone should be angry over that. That's a whole other conversation.
Yeah, just for listeners at home who maybe haven't seen it, there's a big Coke bottler in the South, Coca-Cola United, who has put a $2,000 bounty on each C-store that will swap out a beer door for a Coke product door, which I've never seen before.
I've never seen that. I've seen better quantity discounts and whatever. But so we started that where basically you're going in there because you can't really build a route around. I'm going to liquor stores. I'm going to bars. I'm also going to go to the C-store, guys. Well, first, the C-store routes are going to start way earlier. You're going to have to get to know those buyers. You're going to have to go in there and get your shelf, merchandise it, get your ice bins, work the beer cave. But we can align those similar, every energy, water, those countertop items, they all want to be sold in that similar channel. So we're attacking that and have been this year, and we're going to add to it next year. But on our national accounts team, I ran the numbers, and it's somewhere. I was talking to our national account director yesterday. 19 twos and above out of all craft SKU mix are about 9.5% of the total craft mix right now. So, when I was on the wholesaler side, Founders 19 twos was a massive player, and it's still out there everywhere. You've seen a lot of the AB craft get out there. You've seen a lot of regional, bigger crafts get out there in the single serve. Almost 10% of the category of SKU mix. And if you look at IRI, cans, six-pack cans are down, six-pack glass are down, 12-pack still having a good year, but the singles are through the roof. And I don't think enough. I think there's, on the craft side, the people that have put pride out to pasture, if you will, and say we need volume, right? And I know we want to talk about craft brewers and where they're going as a whole, but you need to be where the volume consumer is. So if you go to a Circle K in Texas, you don't need to be in all 300 Circle Ks, but you should figure out the top 80 that you're in by working with your wholesaler. Our team does that by working with the wholesaler, working with the Circle K buyers. It doesn't matter what the chain is, 7-Eleven, Buc-ee's, Mapco, it doesn't matter. There are great stores that are now having half a door or more of single serve craft. So if I'm a craft brewer, I don't know I'm not an operations guy at all, never claimed to be, but whatever the switch is to add a 19.2 or a single serve on your canning line is an investment I'm looking hard at right now. I'm also going to be challenging my wholesaler to be working those independent resets, because I don't care what size C store you have right now. Every wholesaler in every market has, maybe 10% of their stores that has a shelf of craft singles, and they're selling and they're working. And New Belgium's in every one of them. They've done a great job working with their wholesalers and getting out there. And understand there's a challenge with some of these independent wholesalers. They don't cover their beer guys. They don't cover the C stores, right? So getting in that segment, I think, is going to be critical. But if I'm one of those independent wholesalers, I'm right now challenging my team to say, all right, we can't just go there for this one craft brewer that launched in 19.2. We'll lose our ass. The beer will be expired. It'll be a nightmare. But should we be looking at some of these water brands? Should we look at energy? Should we look at brands that play there and then build a, maybe it's a van route or a pedal cell route? And I think you've got to get lean and aggressive to get in there, because C-store, I think, is going to continue to be more and more of a player. If you look at the big box side, Aldi buying SEG this year in Florida, Kroger corporate still buys different banners, left and right. Walmart still a juggernaut, but that's C-store. Here at home in Nashville, Circle K just bought Mapco, which has been a big major player here in Tennessee, Alabama, and a couple other states. They're going there because you look at a C-store line. Obviously, the pumps are full. The lines are full to check out. They're buying whatever they buy at the checkout. They're buying a couple cans of beer. The one thing I haven't really seen cross over into that world yet is the non-alc beer. And I haven't seen it play much in there. I think most people that want, there's for sure a place, and it's a large part of our book, is the non-alc world. But I don't know how many people want convenience in a brown bag that's a non-alc. I think it's the one play that's going to be the last one to come, if it even gets in there. So that's the one. But yeah, convenience is massive and continues to be so.
I mean, yeah, they have so much food service now in C stores. I mean, you can go there and go grocery shopping, which I do. Don't tell anybody. I just love C stores. Last time we talked about how the table stakes are getting higher to approach a chain. Is that, I would assume that's still just getting higher the bar.
Yeah, we run into it every now and then. Brands always have a mixed bag of wholesalers. Very rarely do you see someone's AB wholesalers throughout the country or Molson Coors. They're usually an independent or maybe a breakthrough somewhere. It's just a mixed bag all over the place, however you put it together. So when you look at an RTD in certain markets, let's just say Florida, there was a long time when Publix wasn't buying RTDs from the AB or Miller Coors network. It was an RNDC, or if it was a breakthrough, whatever it is, because they're buying most of their spirits through them. And you can dissect that 1,000 ways. I won't. But there's a million reasons they could do it. They don't want to add another vendor, or they don't, maybe some quantity stuff going on. I don't know. But those chains are now adding more of the beer vendors in there as wine and spirits buyers. So that's a barrier to entry in some of these states for RTDs. But when you look at the beer side, there's definitely a difference in being with whoever the local category captain is with your brands. That's not only going to get you the meeting, but then they're going to have our team, when we're submitting their brand decks and putting together a selling story and our specific ask, when we can go to that wholesaler and get the dialed in data for what stores are doing what, why the brand story will correlate and it'll work. Such better end result. But when you go to a chain, like, who's this distributor? I've never heard of this one. It's tough. Again, when I talk about that self-evaluation, if I'm a distributor, the second I hear that in a chain that matters, I'm saying whatever we do has to fix this situation, because we can't not be a setup vendor in Harris Teeter, in Walmart, and Target, whatever it is. It's one thing to get in there and authorize. It's a one to have some voice with them. HEB does a good job in Texas of working a lot of the suppliers and working directly with them. And they're friendly to giving things, giving brands new shots, and they'll tell you what distributors they like to work with and which ones they don't. But that's a situation where having a wholesaler that covers all 190 HEBs and knows the buyer and knows how they do processes and what their procedures are, you're going to get a lot further than someone that's a startup or small. So aligning that distributor with the retailer ask is huge, and making sure you have that coverage.
And it is part of that on the chain side, because they do have separate buyers for wine and spirits than they do beer. And so you're like, okay, this coming from a beer wholesaler, but it's not a beer. And so there creates some confusion there. I think that's what we've seen.
Yeah, and there's some look, and it's and now let's get it really muddy with THC beverages, right? So I don't even know what number of category we're on, maybe the fifth. You probably know better than I do, but you've got your beer buyer who's going to buy. Usually, there was a while where there was a dedicated seltzer buyer. That's a beer buyer now in most situations. It's kind of back. Or if it's an RTD buyer, seltzer will fall within that. But rarely do we see that the beer buyer is also buying the RTDs. Usually the wine and spirits buyer. That wine and spirits buyer that's been on the desk for 15, 20 years understands stacks and single bottle sales and placements. But RTD
not really cold box.
Not cold box. And if you look at where High Noon and all these RTDs are sold, it is by having 20 facings in a cold placement on the single shelf, the single serves in the corner, and the multi-packs in the bunker. And then also flanked with stacks. That's not a wine and spirits buyer's typical MO. They understand now, because the beer buyers in some situation are working together. We see a lot of them. They're saying, I don't care what you do. Like, it's separation within the same company. And I would think whoever's above them at some point is going to say, hey guys, work together, because we can make a lot more money together as a retailer.
It's all about ring. We need the ring to get up. You guys, there's turf wars. I understand it. And also, I mean, I'm not going to name any chains, but the wine and spirits guys are a little snobbier. They're kind of up here. They're more sophisticated. They're wearing a tie to work. And then the beer guy is, always out fishing on Friday. It's just a different culture.
Different buy. And I think there's a lot of routine. They've probably bought from the Southerns, the RNDCs, the breakthroughs, oodles and oodles of spirit pallets for years. and they know what their holiday gift pack order is going to be, and they know what wine they're going to feature at Valentine's Day. They know all this stuff. There's probably a little bit of routine or a rut, even whichever side you want to look at that on. So why do I want to throw this AB guy wholesaler in there to do it? Well, the answer is because if that AB Cam, who's talking to you about your Bud Light and Ultra business, is now also talking to you about Cutwater or Neutral, whatever it may be, they've got buying power, they've got programs, they've got things they can bring to your store that the beer buyer would love. But a lot of times, like, you got to talk to my counterpart, and it just goes cold. Because, like, while I talk to you, I've got this person I've dealt with for 15 years. I'm sure they have an RTD to put in the stuff. It's just juice and vodka, right? It's not. There's program, there's liquid, and there's dynamics to it. But I don't know when that merges, and because I think everybody, both those buyers, probably are bonused and paid on what they do in ring and store. So do they want to keep it, and they'll just control the category however they do? But the buyers are the kings and queens, right? So,
for sure. I mean, they're the rulers of the universe, and they, and also the wine spirits buyers looking at the margin too, the unit margin. They're like, God, this sucks, but it moves faster. You got
moves fast, and that's not. I mean, a single bottle of wine or booze on a retail shelf makes you pretty good dollars, but the velocity is a lot slower, right?
Right. Well, what kind, you've mentioned THC beverages. I know Minnesota is a special case because they by mistake made it legal, and now they don't know what to do. But what other categories are you seeing for 2024 that you think are going to be hot items?
We've got a partner. I don't know if you heard Ritual Beverage. They're one of the largest non-alc spiritless spirit brands, if you will. So they're the non-alcoholic tequila rums. I was talking to them last week, and they said 80% of their shoppers buy other alcohol. So not only do these retailers love having these for occasional people that have given up drinking, or they're choosing for sober October or dry January, whatever it is, but they're also having it for inclusion on their bar card at home. Right. So I think that really stuck out to me, that category is massive. We don't really dabble in the non-alc wine space. We've got some great non-alcoholic beer partners. They're growing.
It's just Welch's. I mean, what? It's Mott's.
It's Welch's. Yeah. So
I'm teasing. They get pissed when you say that, but yeah.
So you look at non-alc. I think if you're a wholesaler right now and you don't have a non-alc beer brand, find one, because you need something to compete. Because I don't think there's going to be a restaurant or a good bar worth their salt that doesn't have at minimum 2 to 3 non-alc items on the menu in 2024. Probably a couple beer, couple mocktails, maybe a wine. I think you're eliminating a large percent of your customer base, or you're having them drink tap water or a $2.50 Diet Coke. And it's funny to me, a mocktail without a spiritless spirit's about $9. But a mocktail with a spiritless spirit in there is the same price as the old fashioned I drink, right? It's $18. So the upsell, the ring, every bar F&B manager is looking at that. They realize it. So I think non-alc is going to continue to be a real player. And I think another good fact I got from them, dry January is obviously the Super Bowl for these non-alc brands, but February, March, April, May are their 2, 3, 4, 5 months, because now people have tried it. They're doing it on occasion. They may not drink during the week. They're drinking on the weekends. So I don't think the same non-alc trends we saw of why people weren't drinking were before. I think there was a lot of, I'm not a behavioral study person, but out of COVID, there was a lot of mixed emotions and thoughts. And did I binge drink with all my buddies in my driveway for way too long? And probably. Do I need to make better life choices out in the world? Do I have kids now? Do I have too many responsibilities? Do I just have too much? There's a million things that can go into that conversation, but the conversation is being had. So I think if you're a retailer and a wholesaler, you've got to have that in there. I think much on the back of Twisted tea. If I don't have a tea right now in a wholesaler book, I'm going to find one. We work with the Noka guys. I know you guys have talked to them a few times, and they've got the two-turn Tony and on the TikTok. I shouldn't say on the TikTok, makes me sound older.
God, you do sound like an old man.
Yeah. But
see it on the TikToks.
But there's a bunch of them out there that you could go in that category. I've heard from some chain buyer feedback that teas they're bullish on. I think it's a great time to make sure you are locked and loaded with your craft partners. And it's not the time to talk about selling everything that's limited and cool. When we onboard a craft partner, from the smallest guy to the biggest one we work with, we say those 20 releases are great. If we go to a store and we're going to sell something on tap, what are the 3 brands you want us to choose from? What are the 5 you want? What are the ones that are going to make your ABP number or not? And I think wholesalers are probably like SKU rationalizations, higher rate of sale than ever. You're going to see a lot more people like leaning on that. So having a plan, like if you didn't just go to an ABP and tell them exactly what you want, if you sell my brewery to this store or bar, here's what the 3 options need to be. I think you're going to get a little bit lost in the shuffle. On the non-alc side for the better for you functional, this is the Wild West, right? Like I watched the BevNet stuff yesterday and watched all the stuffs out there and a lot of weed beverages, a lot of stuff out there. But this is a category that you're almost competing with like a KeHE against if you're a distributor. Because KeHE will do some split distribution. They will put brands to their incubator program and take them to chains and broker that. But if I'm a brick and mortar traditional wholesaler, I want these brands because if they're going to take them to Walmart and they'll put them in, they'll do the same thing through you. It's just going to take a little while. Now we go back to that C-store attack. They're built in. It's a pain in the ass, right? It's putting icers in. It's putting the old energy coolers in. It's beating up a half a shelf and putting 4 SKUs in just to come back next week. And if you're AB, the Miller Coors guy took your space. It's a lot of pain in the ass work. I talked to a friend of mine at Adams Beverage a couple of weeks ago in North Carolina, and so much of the business, and this is multiple wholesalers have said this, are now being sold on a profitability level. You got to think when you're selling, it doesn't matter, Modelo, Bud Light, Miller Lite, you're selling a lot of 12-pack suitcases, 18-packs. That's a drop and run. When you sell a case of any energy drink, any water, you're going to like to replenish that. It's a grocery basket full of 3 cases, single serves all on the shelf, merchandise it, fill it, check the 2 coolers by end caps. You do all that to sell 3 cases, 4 cases. So now your merchandising costs, your people are spending more time at the store to do it. But if you look at brands like Essentia and non-alc that started the same way, Monster started the same way with the street team. Mm-hmm. There's some bad things that have happened on energy and non-alc, Bang, whoever, with some wholesaler deals and some sour transactions and I think the wholesalers are now going to be asking for steeper exit multiples than you've ever seen, which there's an argument to be said they should. They're going to protect their business, make sure if they grow this brand and do it. And it's a classic, like the supplier says, well, my liquid and marketing built it. The wholesaler says my team on their back built it. So everyone should get paid, in my opinion. No need to be greedy. There's plenty of money out there for that. But those non-alc brands are good, but you got to almost decide what category are you going to chase, because in energy, energy's right. You're paying for coolers, you're paying for shelf space, you're doing everything out there, and there's 1,000 energy brands in every state. But when I look at non-alc, I'm looking at what are the functional beverages. What's a little bit different? What's the better for you? What's connecting with consumers? We worked with a brand and they actually did MBWA with us called Illicit Elixirs. That's a dopamine enhancing beverage. They just won a BevNet packaging award yesterday. But I had to like Google it when I left. I was like, do we need dopamine? Like, is this energy? What is it? But I guarantee you there's a targeted audience for them that knows exactly what that health benefit is. And the packaging has augmented reality on it. It's all kind of crazy stuff. But wholesalers are going crazy. Wholesalers are loving it. Suppliers and chain retailers are buying into it because like it's different. It's not energy. It's not CBD or weed. And just every market's going to be different. But figuring out what that right non-alc brand is for you. So the categories, and I think beer, my opinion, you'll have a much more educated. You'll do your guesses for 25 soon, I'd assume. Or you'll evaluate your guesses.
I'm going to start with 24. It's a little early, 25, but.
And then I think beer, beer that tastes like beer. We've been longtime Montucky partners since we started. And you can call Montucky's Ride Did they pivot off the back of AB wholesalers having a rough year? They were having a great year before that. But now, as the category, more and more opportunities to drink and consume, that is a domestic lager with cool, fun marketing brands. That's it. Like, it's nothing crazy.
Right.
It's well priced.
Back to basics.
It's back to basics. So I think those back to basic brands are going to have a good year. That are out there. They're with the right distributors. They're attacking chains. They're attacking retail. Because every bar needs a $3 beer and a shot, in my opinion. That's just the bars I want to hang out in. And those beers, I'd say whether it's PBR and Aaron Gantz, whatever it is, I think all those beers could be up for a pretty good year if they have their blocking and tackling right now. So I think that's.
No, I totally agree with you. I kind of think 24 is going to be a good year for just beer. Craft beers, the easiest way to have a great year is to have a shitty year the year before. And so we've done that part. And, I think craft brewers and, like you said, the Montuckies of the world, Pabst, Lone Star, they're already just on fire. And, I was actually talking with Paul Chibe at Pabst yesterday, just informally. And I was like, if Bud Light makes a big return next year, is that going to hurt you? He goes, actually, our highest share markets are where Bud Light has the lowest share. So we were not really affected as much as other brewers were. We've obviously benefited, but
Do you think, Gary, I just asked you, like, in my mind, we saw 3-4 years ago, I don't know how long have seltzers been out? Longer than that, probably. But we saw craft breweries start making seltzers.
Yeah.
And just because it was a category chaser. And, it was like clockwork. Hazy IPAs became big, and now everybody had a hazy. I think now, if I'm one of these beer-flavored beer companies, all the ones we just named, 24 is not the year to get distracted to me. 24 is the year to know who you are, know who your consumer is, and double down. Throw it on the floor, have it on tap, merchandising, connecting music festivals, and get out there and be seen and hand out swag and connect with consumers. I've heard a lot of craft breweries and rumblings like, hey, we've got a non-alc launching. And I get a little bit of the seltzer 4+ years ago. And look, there's some craft breweries doing some amazing non-alcs. But you've got Athletic out there leading the category. You've got Partake, who's a partner of ours, who's growing like crazy. You've got some great ones out there. And there's a lot of ones that are doing really great beer. And that's their identity. That's all they're doing. So the question becomes, like, does consumers, there's two ways it works. The Shoots, friends of mine, and we sell their beer. They've got some great non-alcs coming out and already out that I've tried. So the question is, does a consumer who's taking off the month of January love Deschutes, fresh squeezed IPA, but now I know and trust Deschutes, so I'm going to buy their non-alc? Or do they say, all my friends say I should drink Athletic? And maybe there's enough drinking occasions for everybody to win. But I think the ones that have the consumer loyalty and the connectivity are going to be able to win with that. But it's about being incremental instead of ever being distracted right now. Because I think beer comes back, but as long as you can make that incrementality, 10, 20% of your focus, and the rest is about continuing to deliver the plan on what got you there, I think those people have a great year.
I think you're absolutely right. I think it's probably, instead of chasing whatever's hot, I think if I were a craft brewer right now, number one, if I didn't have a 19.2 line, that's what, go for the package, not a new liquid. And just get out there and hustle beer flavored beer. What's wrong with beer flavored beer?
Nothing. I drink a lot of it.
Yeah, it's fantastic. It's healthy. Talk about dopamine. I like that dopamine beverage. I saw that too. All these kids listen to Andrew Huberman, and it's all about managing your dopamine on YouTube. And so it's dopamine is the keyword of the year.
It's just like big. Yeah. I'm not an educator. I'm not a scientist around it. I still drink beer flavored beer, probably way too much, Harry.
Yeah.
But I need to mix in some better for you sometimes, maybe.
Well, I get my dopamine from enchiladas and sex. So that's the old fashioned way.
That's pretty good.
Very little of both. But God, Austin, I could keep you on here for another 2 hours, but we have to wrap it up. Any last words for folks out there in the beer industry for 24? What are your wise sage words of wisdom?
Yeah, I think and the BevNet always kind of sparks this topic of conversation because they do the best of awards, and you see a lot of packaging awards and brand design. We don't do any consulting, right? There's a million consulting firms, smarter people than me, that can help you grow your brand and packaging and all this. But the industry, I reaffirm it every time I go to a conference and talk to 100 people, and I'm exhausted by the time I get on the plane and come home. This industry is full of so many great people that will help each other. Everyone that has now at a big brand started somewhere, getting another brand, bootstrapping one off the ground. Listen to those people, befriend those people, listen to what's going on, subscribe to your stuff, like read it every day and try to pick up on some new stuff. And there's 100 industry bits of information that are out there at your fingertips. Go to these conventions, listen to what's going on. Don't do what you love, do what like the consumers in the industry where it's going, but do it the right way with your spin on it. And just the biggest thing we try to tell everybody is, hey, this is working. Don't get distracted. If you are a THC beverage that just won a bunch of good stuff, don't think that now, like, because your manufacturing facility can do RTDs, you should have a vodka base that's kind of like your tea. Like, don't get distracted. Stay in your lane. Do well. Like, listen to the people around you. I think there's so much support in this industry and knowledge that if people do it the right way, it's still the best damn business in the world to me. I get up every morning and still love it. I know as you do too. That's it. Stay hungry and enjoy the business, because it's a lot of grind.
My friends.
That's right. Stay thirsty.
That is good advice. You should go to industry conferences. And that kind of brings me to my next topic, which, ladies and gentlemen, don't forget, tickets are still on sale for the Beer, Wine, and Spirits Summit. January 14th, it starts at the Hotel del Coronado. The room block ends on December 10th. So if you're even thinking about coming, get your room, get your ticket. And like I said, I talked to Paul Chibe yesterday, and guess what? He's going to be a speaker. I wanted Paps to be up there because I don't think Paul's ever spoken at one of our conferences. So glad to have him. And just go to beernet.com, look for those tickets. And Austin, was such a great time talking with you. You always have great things to say, and I think it's valuable for people who are, especially young people just getting started in the industry. Hey, learn something. Quit being ignorant.
That's right.
So
I appreciate you having me on, Harry, and I look forward to having a beer with you in much warmer and sunnier California here in about 6-8 weeks.
You bet. Hopefully. Yeah. All right, man.
All right.
Well, have a good weekend. Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.